Good morning. Can you hear me? I guess you can. All right. Well, welcome to Hokyoji's Sunday morning Dharma talk. I'm Carl Haltman. I'm on staff here, and I get to introduce our guiding teacher who will give our talk this morning. It's Reverend Dokai Georgesen. He started practicing Zen with Katagiri Roshi in 1974. And was ordained in 1984, and he received transmission from Katagiri Roshi in 89. He's the guiding teacher at Hokyoji and has been living here since 2003, and he is the current president of the Soto Zen Buddhist Association. So, welcome, Dokai.
Welcome and good morning, everybody. So today I'd like to talk about the continuous practice of Zazen. In the last two talks that were given by the last two people, they were present at the Hokyoji winter practice period. And both of them spoke to some degree or another about kind of the transition of going from a practice period back into, let's call it ordinary life. And we'll call, for the time being, we'll call the practice we do at a practice period a little bit of a special situation. So that's what I'd like to talk about today. And I'm going to use speak from a chapter, and you have to say something by Katagiri Roshi, and it's called Before Thoughts Arise. He says, the practice of Zen Buddhism is understanding life as the constant flow of activity rather than as concepts and beliefs. Now, this is very, very important. It's a little different from a lot of spiritual traditions in that I'll just go back to that statement because it's very, very important. The practice of Zen Buddhism is understanding life as the constant flow of activity rather than as concepts and beliefs. So all that's occurring in our life is just a constant flow of activity. Sometimes that activity is pleasant, and sometimes it's very unpleasant, confusing. It travels the whole spectrum of human life, can be extremely painful sometimes and extremely pleasant at other times. But it's just a continuous flow of activity. Activity means the actions we do, the things we're saying and speaking, the things we're feeling, rather than conceptualizing about it and believing. Even we need to let go of the concept or the belief that this Zen Buddhist practice that I'm doing is really the best kind of spiritual practice one can do. That's just a belief. And it's ultimately, it's not, it doesn't really help the practice. It's just a concept or belief. But when I say the world is more than our concepts, immediately you are confused. There is nothing for you to get a hold of. Consciously or unconsciously, you try to depend on a conceptualized world. This is something that in particular, the practice of Zazen helps us to realize or understand. And we can believe that it's a special activity, and that's okay to believe that because it's an activity that's been handed down for thousands of years where people have said this is a very helpful activity for us to do, to sit in meditation and just be still and examine what is happening inside of ourselves. So we can pay attention to what people in the past have said and written things about it and said things about it. And those things may resonate with us as being something to pay attention to. So when we actually do this practice, it really doesn't matter what other people have said in the past or done. The only way it becomes valuable to us is that we ourselves in our own lives verify. We verify with our own body and mind that this is a valuable practice. And it's just does not come out of our own, it only comes out of our own experience. And that's why we continue to practice. The Buddha, and however, he says consciously or he says there's nothing to get a hold of, and consciously or unconsciously, you try to depend on a conceptualized world. Now, this is why the practice of Zazen is so important, because we do not really fully realize how deeply we are involved in a conceptualized world. And the conceptualized world is just our own concepts of it. And to the extent that that just permeates our entire life is really can't be known very well by us unless we do a very specific practice, which is settling ourselves down, sitting still, and looking deeply into that, and practicing just letting go of these concepts that continuously arise and continuously have such deep attachment for ourselves. So going back to my initial comments, is that we do create a situation here at Hokyoji and many other retreat centers where we try to make a quiet and very safe environment where we can do this practice. And for the most part, as much as possible, not to live in a situation where things are very confusing, constantly arising, the daily activities of our ordinary life. And true, we are creating a special place where we can practice that because, well, most human beings need that. We need that. And that's, I think, just to recognize our humility, that we're not super duper people who can do anything. We need a lot of support to do this practice, especially over a long period of time. So, going back to my initial comment, sometimes when we practice here in this retreat center, for a period, especially for, well, it happens when we do even a weekend retreat or a week-long retreat or even like a 3-week retreat like we did with the practice period, that when we leave this place and go to another environment, we think something has changed. Well, I totally understand that, why we would think that. But actually, nothing has changed at the bottom of it all, except how our mind is perceiving things or working. That's what changes. But the basic uh, activity is just going on of human life. One thing after another is arising. And sooner or later, we will start to get confused by something, especially leaving the retreat center. We'll see people misbehaving more and kind of just all the suffering in the world, and it will confuse us. So we do need to continuously practice just calming our mind, settling ourselves down to see that and understand that it's only the same constant flow of activity that's always arising. The Buddha and other great teachers have always pointed to the world that is here before we conceptualize it. We have to taste this world and understand it as it is. Conceptualization is important, of course. It is kind of a blueprint of the world that we draw upon. We can't live without a blueprint, but neither can we live inside a blueprint. We become onlookers in the world of concepts. We look and think and imagine, and through we study our blueprints. We don't understand just what it is that we are imagining. So that's really true. We get so attached or enveloped in our imaginations that we can't see that it's actually happening. And our imaginations lead to our beliefs, and we lose the original spirit of just everything arising from this moment. Katagiri uses this analogy of burning paper. He says, when you burn paper, you probably think that the paper is something other than the fire. This is the world of conceptualization. But actually, there is no separation. Paper is fire, fire is paper. But even saying paper is fire, fire is paper is dualistic. So this is kind of, I don't know how we can ever know about this without the practice of Zazen. I think it can happen. It's not just limited to Zazen. It could be other experiences we have in our life, like hiking in the woods, or maybe taking a beautiful vacation somewhere where we're totally relaxed. Or I think too, I don't really have this experience, but I'm going to imagine it, conceptualize it. Maybe like seeing your newborn baby, something like that. It's just like, is there a concept going on there? I don't think so. That kind of joy, the experience, it just coming into your heart. And even though it's a special moment, um, why isn't all of life just like that moment? Why wouldn't it be? We can ask ourselves. He goes on to say, if I talk of my death, I can't explain the reality of it in words. Why? Because first I have to say the subject I, next comes the verb die. First there's me, who isn't death, and then comes dies. It's very dualistic. In reality, things are not separate in the way they are in language. The paper is fire, I am life, I am death. There's no gap between them. But when we get used to understanding the world through the concepts we use to describe it, but we get used to that. This is why no matter how long we discuss this problem, we don't get it. We just have to see it. Zen Master Gasan was asked by his master Keizan, do you know there are two moons? Gasan didn't understand, but he contemplated this statement for 3 years. Gasan's practice was very serious and very deep, and eventually he understood Master Keizan's point. If we see the moon and sky, we would say it's just one moon, but this is our common understanding, the understanding of our conceptual mind. It is not really seen. When we conceptualize, we always bring ourselves up first. When we say, I see the moon, there is separation. But in reality, you and the moon are merged completely. Our practice is to see this reality in which there is no separation between you and the moon. Beyond all our likes and dislikes, something is constantly happening. Beyond all human criticism and evaluation, life goes on. In reality, your life is always being supported by many things. This is why Master Keizan told Gassen, there are two moons. There's the moon we conceptualize, and there's the moon as it is, completely interfused with all beings. Conceptually, we believe there's one moon, and of course it is so. But the moon, our thought, is not the real moon because its conceptualizing mind always inserts itself first before we acknowledge the moon as it is. But beyond mundane thoughts and speculations, you and the moon are wondrously interfused. This is true reality. It is not an idea. It is unconceivable. It is where you and the moon are inter-identical. This is our life. Well, when he says, conceptually, we believe there's one moon, and of course, there's something that we have to pay attention to, that is one side of reality. We can say red and green are the same thing. They're all one, but it makes a difference when you come to a stoplight, stop sign, and we need to act in a certain way if the light is red or the light is green. So that is a reality we have to pay attention to always at the same time. I'd like to read something from Harada Roshi also now. It's called The Light of the Dharma, the Light Within Yourself, from his book, Zen Essence. He said, if I were to say what the aim or goal of practice should be, I would say Zazen is Zazen. I would like you to make an effort so that would be simply enough. This doesn't only refer to sitting form of Zen or Zazen, it means to practice each thing, each activity for its own sake in your work and your daily life. Each activity is the end in itself. In this way, there's no special significance attached to anything. During the last 5 days, and I presume he's talking about a retreat or session, I think I have only served to deepen your confusion. It is as if I have cultivated your knowledge of Zen with a hoe. Let Zazen be Zazen is the new seed. There's none better. If what I have said has been confusing for you, please don't think badly of me. I know our talks are supposed to go for about 30 minutes, but I've only gone for 21. So if I've confused you, please don't think ill of me. But that's all I have to say. Um, it's this practice we do is so simple and yet so challenging. And most of us really need a lot of support to continue to do it, especially over a long period of time. So I'm happy to be able to live here at Hokyoji, where I receive continuous support to do this practice. And I'm very grateful for that. And I can understand how when people go away from Hokyoji, they don't feel they get the support that they do when they're here. But I also have to tell you, if you actually live here at Hokyoji a lot, it's not so hunky-dory all the time because it turns into your ordinary life. So you got to deal with all kinds of stuff, just like usual. But there's a way that it supports this practice in a way that a lot of other activities do not. So that's all I have to say. If anyone has any comments or questions, I would welcome them now. Maybe you all know what I'm talking about more than I do, so.
Well, to fill the void, I just received a book from the library that I'd had on hold, and it's by a physicist, Carlo Rovelli, uh, and he studies quantum gravity. And the name of this book is "Life is Not What It Seems." So, and we put our concepts on top of our experience to try and make sense of them, but the the experience is much greater than our concepts. It's just a personal view of what we go through. It's not what we go through. It's just our impression of what we go through. And I think, you know, anyway, life is not what it seems. So I like that title anyway. So thanks for your talk, Dokai.
Thank you. Yeah, it reminds me of Steve Hagen's book a long time ago. He wrote, Buddhism is not what you think. I thought that's a catchy title. And, that was 20 years ago, or I don't know how long ago, but many, many years ago when he came up with that title. So
Yeah.
I was just going to say that I really enjoyed uh, the use of the word infused, describing our relationship with the moon. And I was just reading here a few days ago about uh, the solar eclipse that's going to happen. I think it's April 8th, and I think we're in La Crosse going to be in the 80% blackout range, and a lot of people are traveling, to the full blackout. But anyway, what I was struck by as I was reading about it was, before astronomy and understanding what the relationship of the moon and the Earth were, most people thought that the sun was being gobbled up, and so they had these ritual practices of drumming and noise making and stuff until the sun would to drive off the evil spirits or whatever until the sun would reappear, and of course it worked. And anyway, it's just like, so the conception, I guess what I'm getting at is, yeah, the conception of our limited understanding, I mean, of what it was then or even what it is now, is just so confused with our own experience of things.
thank you, Frank. Yeah, I think we probably think, oh, our sophisticated now is so, our understanding now is so sophisticated. And isn't that kind of ridiculous to think evil spirits were? But I would say probably our understanding now, if we, 500 or 600 years from now, we look back on our understanding and people are going to say how ridiculous those people were to have believed this, that, or the other thing. So
Yeah.
it's very limited. I'm not going south to see the total eclipse. I did it when it happened 10, 12 years ago, whenever it was. And I
Yeah.
went to Wyoming and I picked out the spot that I thought was in the middle of no place where it was going to be. And I went there and I was driving like 100 miles an hour to get there because things kept happening. I had to get there at a certain time. And when I got there, there were thousands of people in this little tiny place where I thought there wouldn't be anyone's. It turned out to be quite a ordeal, so I'm not doing it this time. But it was pretty amazing thing to see the sun just disappear. And all this special lighting, like a little ring of light around the whole horizon, is like unworldly. It's kind of something you never see.
Hello.
Yeah.
I've been puzzling over your comment about, he said there were two moons, and I've been wondering if that's pointing to the moon that you see in the sky and the moon that is the concept in your mind. And I wondered if you could say a little more about that.
I probably can't because I don't understand it. It's a little bit puzzling to me, but I guess it's just like, oh, something what? What does that mean? Two moons. That's probably, I think that's probably the point of the Zen teachers. Yeah, just kind of breaking down the conceptualization of it. And probably if you were to say to Zen Master Keizan, who said, do you see two moons? If you would say, yeah, the one we see and the one whatever, he probably would say, no, that's not what I'm talking about. That's what I'm guessing. But it's something that's it's the moon we see and the moon we can't conceptualize about. That's how I would say it. Just maybe that's the way you said it too, but it's just the moon that we see in the sky and we call it the moon. And then we have a special circumstance here at Hokyoji. When we're going to Zazen in the morning at certain times of the year, and we have great full moons here because we don't have a lot of light pollution. But there's this other kind of thing we see where it's like a half, it's a crescent of the moon. And on some days or some nights, early morning, Venus will be right next to it. And it's like, it just stops you in your tracks more than a full moon. And that sensation of just being stopped and all the concepts disappear by just something you're seeing, I think is the two moons. And it doesn't mean Venus and the moon. It just means something that's beyond what you can actually describe, or you're just in that moment, pure moment of awareness where the bottom drops out of what you conceive to be existence or life or your life or my life or anyone else's life. It's funny, maybe I see full moons quite a bit, but I don't see this crescent thing with Venus next to it. I've only seen 4 or 5 times. So maybe I'll get used to it sometimes. It's, oh, that's Venus and the crescent moon. But for right now, I've seen it 3 or 4 times, and it just stops me. I mean, I literally stop walking when I see it. And it's interesting now, I've checked, there's other people who walk to the Zendo too, and it'll come up after we sit Zazen and do our little check-in. So, did you see the moon today? We said, oh yeah. And it's almost like it affects all of us the same way. So it's like Rushin,
There's a
you to speak. Okay, yes.
travel show sometimes on one of the free stations on the Samsung TV, and this woman went to Norway with the specific intent of seeing the Northern Lights. She was raised in Indonesia, but she was British, et cetera, et cetera. So these travel shows, the person has to narrate what's going on all the time, right? And nobody can guarantee her that she's going to actually see the Northern Lights. And then one guy says, "Oh yeah, you'll see them sometime." And then they go out. They're up past the Arctic Circle and whatnot. But when they finally happen, she's quiet. And just this massive display is happening, and she doesn't know what to say, and she's just sitting out on the snow. And it's just a dazzling display, but just as much as it's like, this is the silence. She's just overwhelmed by the experience, and she can't really talk about it till the next morning, and then she tries to describe what she felt when that was happening. But when it was actually happening,
Yeah.
she was quiet.
That was my experience too. I was up in Alaska camping, and actually I'd never seen Northern Lights really, really clearly. And I had to get up in the middle of the night, and I stepped outside and I didn't know what was going on. I mean, it was just these flashes of light going every which way, red, blue, green, everything. And it took me 10 or 15 seconds to know, oh, these are Northern Lights. And so I was just dumbfounded by the whole thing. But yeah.
I don't know. Once you once you label it, then you've got the concept.
Oh yeah. Oh, this is what this is. Okay, I got it under control. Not like the world is collapsing or anything. Great.
So coming back from practice period, these 2 weeks have gone by really fast. So I was having to do some dishes the other day, and I thought, well, I haven't listened to music in a long time, so I turned on Mott the Hoople's Greatest Hits, and that album really needs to be played really loud. But there's a lyric in there which introduced me to this Yogacara school of Vasubandhu of, is this concrete all around or is it in my head? That's a brilliant lyric of, is it out there or is it in here? That's it's better if it's loud, I guess.
Thank you, Rushin.
It's funny. I have kind of the same experience. Some of you know I've been trying to learn Japanese, and I'm I think you get to a certain point in your life where language doesn't maybe come quite as easily or something. I don't know, but I find that it's really interesting to be on the edge of learning a language where you're sort of you're trying to analyze it and you're trying to internalize it, and that happens in two different places, and you're always confused and all that kind of thing. But I find that with adjectives, and I was trying with a friend. There's this word kawaii, which means scared or scary. We're like, oh, kawaii, scary. And I was really trying to kind of pin down, does that mean I'm scared, or does that mean you're scary, or the situation is scary, or what's being scared and what isn't? And I couldn't get a really good answer to that question. And I heard a lecture later where they said there was some ambiguity there. There's some polarity flipping depending on whether or not the subject is stated. And I mean, there was a sort of a good explanation for that. And I still don't think I could produce the right words when I needed them, but it really did sort of make me think. There's this episode where you strongly identify, I'm scared. And then there's also this other experience where there's just this environment of scariness that you're expressing. And I mean, this could be any adjective. And so where does the boundary fall? And it seems a little bit movable. And I was thinking, oh, is that just Japanese that does that? And then I was thinking, oh, that the idea of, it's cold is maybe kind of the same thing in English. I don't know. I mean, I'm cold. It's cold outside. There's coldness. Like, where does cold fall? And are you directly involved? Are you creating? I just, I mean, when you don't know a language very well, it kind of stops you and you start doing all this analysis that you wouldn't otherwise do. It just sort of comes out. So that's kind of Northern Lights to me as a bad student. Anyway, that's all I've got.
Thank you. Yeah, learning another language can do that. It can just show you the concepts just don't work. It's like the only language I know a little bit is Spanish. So sometimes I'll translate something from English into Spanish, and it just doesn't work. It's just don't think of it that way. So you just have to let go of your concept. It doesn't work that way. But learning another language is a great way to experience that too, I think. Yeah, Jushin.
Good morning. Thank you for your talk.
You're welcome.
I was the one who sort of tried to talk last week, but it was interesting. I think so. Two things just to what Aaron was saying. Like language is funny. I was spending way too much time on Instagram, and I somehow have gotten the algorithm has realized I like etymology stuff, and so all of a sudden I'll get content producers who talk about language and where things come from. And they were making the point, Aaron, about that exact thing, how in English and a lot of the languages, when you say it's raining, it's like, what's the it's? And the other thing, they were making fun of English speakers because we say, I'm hungry. It's like, you're hungry? Like, you're the personification of hungry? because in other language you say either I have hunger.
Yeah,
But that would be both German and Spanish. And then like Irish, you say hunger is at me. So we seem to be the only ones who take on the personification of I am the personification of angry or hungry or whatever. But it was after, I think this might apply a little bit, and I think why so I have a general interest even in academic philosophy. So I think one of the things that Jürgen Habermas talks about is in the, you can take some of it with a grain of salt, but one of the challenges of modern life is what he called means ends rationality. And this comes from Immanuel Kant, who's talking about the categorical imperative is never treat anyone as a means to an end, but only as an end in themselves. And I think I gave a Dharma talk a number of years ago now where I talked about this, where you could think of this in Buddhism as never treat anything as a means to an end, but only an end to itself. But there was a great, I think, that connects your talk this week and my talk last week when you're saying Zazen is Zazen. I have the waking up app, and every day Sam Harris pushes me a little moment. And it's like, it's a clip. It's about 45 seconds. And there was one, oddly enough, on the 28th that pertained to our talks, which says, whatever you're about to do next, whatever task, take stock. Is the next task a means to an end or an end in itself? Sure, we have unwanted tasks and there are more enjoyable tasks, and some tasks are burdens, but this is your life. It's not a rehearsal. This is the show. So whatever you might want or have or should have to do, make it all worth your attention, because this is your only life. And it's just like the Zazen is Zazen. To me, sometimes I think like that's a lot of the practices, and a lot of where the conceptualization comes from is that, like, why do we call it the moon? Well, we want to describe it to other people. We want to remember it. We want to be, so that it's by naming the experience, which you have to do with the red light, green lights, though sometimes you're not letting it be an end in itself.
right now I'm in the middle of doing taxes. With it's really complicated this year because I'm doing my sister's estate, and then the part of her life before she died, that's one tax, and then after is another, and then my own. And it's pretty hard to think that I'm just want to get to the end of this. I'm working hard to say, oh, this is just what it is. And it goes better if I just do that, but it's a real practice, especially when you start getting frustrated with the endless details you got to figure out. But see my screen very well.
I just want to add one more thing.
Sure.
So Adam Frank is an astrophysicist. He's involved with NASA in looking for other worlds that have life and such. And is also a basic physicist that trying to figure things out. And he has said there's a world out there, but that's not the world we live in. So that's this whole breakdown between, yeah, there's something out there, but that's not how we manage. That's not how we've created.
Yeah. That sounds like a Zen thing. Well, we're 15 minutes ahead of time, but that doesn't mean we have to go for 15 more minutes. So is that enough for today. If someone has some kind of burning comment they'd like to offer, we can receive it. Or we can call it an early Sunday morning.
All right, going once, going twice. Everybody has had a chance to say what they were moved to say. So anyway, thanks for joining in this morning. Dokai, thanks for your talk. Let's see. Next week, Myo Habermasher is going to be the speaker. The week after that, our own Jan Fryer Ryushin, you are giving the talk. Did you? I hope you knew that. So, and the week after that, on the 24th, it'd be Shoto Spring, and then Easter. I think that's the Easter. Dokai, you're back again on the 31st. So,
yes.
Anyway, we've got a few things coming up at Hokyoji on Tuesday. We've got an online class starting. It's a study of the Tenzo Kyokun, the instructions to the cook, Dogen's writing, and what is a companion book? How to eat your life or something? What is it?
It's instructions for the cook.
Right, but that compilation of Aaron, you got the name of that book?
Yeah, I think Nothing is Hidden. That one.
Yeah, that's the title of that.
Which is out of print, but maybe available. Is that correct? Anyway, so you can sign up for the study group online. What are that? There's 8 weeks of this on each Tuesday at where's it? Wednesday. Starts on the 5th of March.
Tuesday at what,
6:30 Central Time. So should be a lively discussion on that. And then we're jumping into April, and the first Saturday in April, the 6th, Hokyoji is going to have its annual membership meeting where the members can vote in new board members and get reports on Hokyoji's past year. And that is going to be in Minneapolis at, what is it, John? 1 o'clock? Is that right? Yeah.
1 o'clock, Linden Hill.
And it'll be by Zoom also, so that people that aren't in town will be able to come in. And then the following week on the 11th, which is a Thursday through the Sunday, we have the Caring for the Land weekend. So we would invite everybody to come down to Hokyoji and hang out with everybody else. It's kind of a nice social time, and it doesn't cost anything. We feed you and put you up, and we have chores of all types to take part in. So looking forward to that. I believe that is all the announcements that I have.
I'll make one little announcement. Right now, we have an interesting thing going on here at Hokyoji. We have Bo, one of our residents, invited 4 of his friends.
That's right, his college buddies or something.
Yeah, so they were here, and they joined us for Zazen yesterday morning. Aaron, you were there, and they all sat pretty still. I was checking in as the guiding teacher by Zoom. I wasn't here, but so they're still down here. I joked, I hope they still remain his friends after doing Zazen, a service. They went through the whole thing. They were very receptive to it all, as far as I could tell. but I'd like to go down and say hello to them before they go. I'll leave sometime today. I don't know when, but it's quite an unusual experience. So kind of appreciating it. So have a lot of young energy around here. They're all under 28 years old. So, so no wild parties that I could hear last night.
It's interesting. I forgot that was happening this weekend.
Well, it's just that it's not a, it's just, I just thought I'd tell people because
No, that's interesting. So anyway, nice to hear. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for us this morning so we can close with the 4 vows. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to realize it. Thank you all. Have a great day. It's going to be 68 degrees here this afternoon, the 3rd of March.
Yes.
Oh, well.
Take care. All right. See you. Bye-bye.